true. It's true. The accusations are true. Olet is a murderer. She is a murderer. She has killed someone. Wait, why is the... Oh, it's going over that.
myself. I don't feel
9. Oh, I already.
nothing but myself. I don't
Shot 7, scene 7. Can you watch Shadow Plus Show? Well, Shadow Plus Show. I'm not sure what that is. Oh, do you mean your own channel? I will check it out. Um, Interesting. Uh, I'm in the middle of drawing something, but you stick around maybe. I don't understand, my whole body has been dyed completely red. You subscribe? Well, I haven't even watched your content yet, so I usually want to subscribe after I at least watch a video or two. I realized I already had this on my colors. So soon I'll get to be, soon I'll get to be everything. I don't understand. Then one died completely red.
Feel, I don't feel at all.
I am. This is F.
体はなくて色をまとうよかすかに放つ電気を頼りにして輝かなす感で飲み込む好みの色が欲しくてさまよってる琥珀の服を見つけたよ首に模様と絵師で光欲しいな今の色彩電気の友と知りたいな知りたいな色色知りたいな輝いて不安な気持ちと恋したいの見つけては食べましょう
Hello.
色で体を映しましょうみんな見てこんなに楽しくて美しいの虹の吐息のスカートが風になびいて僕を撫でる体ができた嬉しくなるよこの星にあるすべての色が欲しいレモンの色に出会えないままくたびれて歩けなくなった時にさ
Hello.
その子供黄色の雨具を羽織
Huh?
嬉しく
I'm
な
gonna
る
pause the music. I'm doing okay. Just trying. How are you? I should play something calmer. This is calm. This is so calm. We're so chill. We're so chill. We're chilling. I don't know how to do this. beautiful eyes and a lovely smile. Thank you. Thank you for your support and your compliments. How can I do this? In reference, so like when I look at myself, I notice that like the shoulders are treated like this. Like there's like an opening. So, oh my goodness. Excuse me. Oh. Sorry, let me. I gotta shorten chat so I can actually need to. Done.
You'll be okay. They're still the same person. I mean it, truly.
I don't feel
I need to work on the sound
anything.
editing for that, but yeah, that'll be fun.
World comprised of nothing but myself. I don't.
Woof. Rough around the edges, but we'll get through it. I will cry. I will totally cry. I will cry in something. Yes. Maybe I shouldn't say the last part. It's just part of the meme. It's part of the meme. And it's real. Hello. No, I'm coloring outside the borders, but you know. Which is do. What is your picture? So I'm animating a script. Um, Gosh, I have to describe it. I'm streaming, right? Oh, you're streaming too? Oh, I didn't even realize. I'm so sorry. I don't want to compete with you, so like I should have been mindful of that. But you know, um, what is my picture about? Um, I'm animating a short film, 20 minutes of length, about I don't want to pitch it. Yikes. Maybe yelled at me to come clip. Clip what? I don't think I said anything interesting. Don't think so, at least. Also, doesn't Hammy have access to the clip channels? Can't he just clip himself? Or am I mistaken? Could be mistaken. Exactly without him clipping. Exactly without him clipping. Yeah. Real, he has access to someone clipping. I mean, I wouldn't be able to tell you. There you go. IDK. Uh, yeah. very. Kozlowski about to go past that minimum. It's supposed to be sleeping, Missy. It's only 10:45, so I'm trying to stay up later. So, oh, my acne is so bad. Um, I'll go to bed in like an hour, or not. I don't know. I really need to work on this project, so I gotta take every hour I can. I'm not tired though. Yeah, I'm just gonna take my meds and pass out at 12. Okay, good night. Thank you for stopping by. Sorry I didn't see your stream. I literally just didn't know your stream. Should probably turn it up something.
and blind, their skin ashen grey, their hair washed away from empty scalps. Their facial features seem to merge imperceptibly, their noses sliding forwards into their upper lips, their eyes drawing back, forming a soft and fleshy beak. They crawl, rather than walk, in their efforts to reach the hole, scrambling over car bonnets, startling me as they leap in devoted silence across alley roofs. The hole has deepened by this time. I should probably describe it not as a hole at all, but as a pit, its depths increasingly steep and obscure, and, from our perspective on the surface, limitless. Something is happening down there, although it's no longer possible to see what exactly. Every so often, freshly infected burrowers complete their pilgrimage through the city to the garbage field, reach the edge of the pit, and topple forwards into the blackness without ceremony. Even several streets away, you might start to think you can still hear them, scrabbling somewhere underneath your feet. On the 10th or 11th day, things begin to get out of hand. A nun from the monastery of St. Mary's pens a newspaper editorial denouncing the excavation process, speculating that the victims are being compelled to dig by some force that is unnatural and, yes, satanic in nature, driving the entire city towards the unearthing of something gigantic and sentient beneath us that, once awakened, will sow misery across Askew. She gives her name as Sister Agnes. She calls the victims of the digging sickness earthworms, a pejorative I'd never heard before, but which catches on quickly, and which seems like a suitable reference to their pallor, their rounded snouts, their blind and milky eyes. It's as if they're being prepared for something, actively devolving in readiness for a life somewhere beneath our feet. Yes, people begin muttering to me in the Queen and Crown, apropos of nothing. There is something grubby and vile and intelligent in the nature of this madness. Perhaps we should all be watchful. The editorial of Sister Agnes ends by asking why the civic authorities have not erected barricades to prevent the tide of infected creatures from reaching the pit. Has order been abandoned in Askew? Must we let our society be literally undermined by our enemies, so long as they do not dare to attack us directly? The sentiment is heard by some kind of power. Because the very next morning, barbed wire fences are erected through the streets surrounding my neighbourhood, and coaches are chartered to bus in weeping relatives on demand, pleading and arguing with sufferers of the digging sickness, begging them to turn back. None of it does any good. The earthworms tear their hands and wrists open, clambering over the barbed wire to get to the pit, and crawl or roll downhill once they've reached the other side, hemorrhaging as they go. The relatives are ignored. Sister Agnes is unapologetic. In her second newspaper column, she makes a passionate argument for a new approach. If the people of Askew are so desperate for a sense of purpose that their bodies can be overtaken by the spirit of the pit, then let them be offered a new collective project. A great tower, assembled by the citizens, at the tallest point of the city. The idea meets with general approval, although there is some distress concerning the exact location of the tower, since the tallest point of the city is the square of St. Jacobi, where the cathedral stands, and where nobody is willing to go, let alone attempt to erect a rival structure. After much discussion, Sister Agnes states that the tower will instead be built on a cemetery hill on the city's north side. It's a compromise that's quickly accepted. Mobs begin to gather in the drinking houses of the lower town, slapping each other on the shoulders and shouting that they're going to break into the construction sites and steal the cranes and scaffolds for themselves. A few of them begin to talk about walking up to the Ground Zero neighbourhood, my neighbourhood, and massacring the earthworms, dumping 18 tons of earth onto their heads and putting an end to it, once and for all. On the 13th or 14th day, a new spire is rising up amongst the churches and temples on Cemetery Hill. 3 monstrous cranes have been stolen or requisitioned to help move the construction work along, and they stand over the beginnings of the makeshift tower, with their heads bowed, like watchers over a cradle. At night, I can look out from my bathroom window and see their red beacons glowing high over the pitch blackness of Askew. I hear reports that Sister Agnes is on site herself from dawn until dusk, going over the plans with the foreman, urging her workers on to new literal heights, praying for the soul of the city. Even before the short and ultimately one-sided war begins, there's a shift in mood amongst us all. A kind of storm-bearing humid heat in the air. A sense of 2 opposing forces resolving themselves into being. The gangs of the lower town, who are usually ahead of the curve on such matters, begin to abandon the worship of their old gods and speak openly of fealty to the spirit of the tower. More than once, I come across an earthworm, its kneecaps shattered by an attacker, dragging itself painfully up the hill by its fingernails, crawling on its belly. The tower grows. Soon the 3 hellish cranes are ducking their heads far beneath the rising spine of something iron and monstrous and new. There are hundreds of volunteer builders, most of them amateurs, clambering up the steel skeleton of the structure every day. And every day they stay for longer. Rumours are being spread about that a 12-hour shift or longer upon the tower is a surefire sacred protection against the digging sickness, and Sister Agnes's workers toil and sweat with a frightened, ever-increasing fervour. Some brand their shoulders with a single thick vertical line, the mark of the tower, and claim it as a ward. Already, some hopeful souls are beginning to ask what purpose the finished building should serve. It would be fitting, perhaps, if the floors were filled in with hospital rooms to treat the infected, or apartments for the poor. Sister Agnes sends them away. The floors are not to be filled in, the walls are not to be bricked up between the great steel girders. The tower is to remain an empty skeleton, a building whose only purpose is the collective effort and sacred duty of construction, a monument to industry, a triumph over sickness and compulsion. The tower is growing, yes, but it isn't growing fast enough. On the 18th day, Sister Agnes calls an emergency press conference. Quivering with age and fury atop an old white transit van that serves as a podium, she calls down the fury of the heavens upon the earthworms, who continue to lure so many young and healthy souls to the pit. She denounces the city for its failure to officially declare these repulsive creatures enemies and non-citizens. Those that shun the sky, she cries, are not worthy of being considered human. There are cheers, there's applause. After the speech, press gangs of burly men begin to stalk the streets, looking for healthy workers to help on the tower, turning up with tire irons and bats at office blocks and gyms and bars. Those who do not consent to joining the construction crews for a day of work are beaten, taunted, kicked. Since newcomers are invariably sent up to precarious crow's perches high above the city on one of the 3 teetering iron cranes, this might be a preferable option. More than one worker falls. Myself, I avoid this new crisis very simply, by no longer showing up for work, or seeing people, or going outside. Which proves to be an intelligent choice from a historical perspective, since barricaded in my unlit apartment, and chewing on a mouthful of baked beans, I'm stood at my window and able to watch exactly what happens at dusk on the 23rd day. This is the day when the branded men come for the earthworms. Afterwards, it's called the Battle of Soil and Sky. It isn't much of a battle. Dozens of drunkards, on scooters and on foot, running through the cobbled streets, howling and shrieking, battering the few straggling earthworms down wherever they find them, until thin translucent fluid that could no longer be described as blood is running amongst the stones and into the gutters. When the branded men reach the rim of the pit, they light their Molotov cocktails and begin to toss them down, one after the other, cheering as each blazing torch lights up the darkness for just one instant. You can hear the flames crackling far below. If the earthworms are burning, they do it in silence. Afterwards, the branded men piss. On the morning of the 24th day, we are surprised to find
Oh, sorry, I realized that.
behind. There are no longer earthworms roaming the streets of Askew. The pit stands alone, deserted in its empty field, surrounded by a high rim of garbage and soil. Perhaps they all burnt to death down there, we speculate. Perhaps the disease has worn itself out. At a little past 11, we have our answer. No matter where you were in the city, whether you were lost in the black firs of Outer Heath or stood beneath the neon clock in the Counter's Lane, you'd have heard it and felt it. A cataclysmic groaning, the sense of the ground itself shifting beneath your feet, making plates rattle and babies weep. The three enormous cranes, one after the other, swaying crazily back and forth, stumbling on suddenly uncertain footing, toppling to either side as the ground beneath them collapsed, crashing down amongst the crypts and graves of Cemetery Hill in an upheaval of choking brown dust. Hundreds of workers died, of course. And we knew that the earthworms, although we never saw them again, must surely remain far beneath our feet, and that they were better off left alone. I don't remember how much I saw of the rest of it. I feel as if my memories are more vivid, more individualistic than the same generic scenes I watched on television with everyone else. And yet I don't remember standing there, amongst the shaking heads, as Sister Agnes proclaimed, in defiance of the actual evidence, that the war was over, and the earthworms defeated, and the tower complete. The faithful amongst the crowd, crying out for blessings and snapping on their camera phones, and Sister Agnes strapping herself down into a leather stretcher, ordering the last of her closest disciples to carry her up the impossible height of the empty tower. "The peak," she said, in a voice that was suddenly shaky and close to fearful. "The peak will be composed of a martyr's flesh." The giddy ascent was captured on camera. The courageous men and women clambering one-handed up the skeleton of a spire. Sister Agnes swaying beneath them on 6 stout bungee cords, passed from shoulder to shoulder, shrinking into the sunlight until they were no more than black scrawls against the heights above us. And then they must surely have reached the top, because hours passed and nothing could be seen, and nobody was falling to meet us on the ground.
Feel at all.
A throaty, exhausted cheer went up. This felt somehow like a victory, or at the very least a completion. The tower had asserted itself. Industry had overcome compulsion. Soon enough, when it became clear that nothing else was likely to happen, we dispersed. Back to our homes, and with reluctance, our jobs. Nobody was willing to fill in the pit. There were the earthworms to think about, of course, but I think perhaps we were more frightened by the thought that we might prove ourselves incapable of filling it in, that we might pour tons of liquid concrete or rubble into its endless depths and never hear it hit any kind of surface below. That the earthworms might have achieved their goal, whatever it was. Instead, the authorities erected a sign. Danger, it simply said, hedging their bets. I have stood there since, in the dead field on dark and tipsy nights, on top of a hilly rim of piled garbage and discarded corpses, gazing into the welcoming pure black mouth of the pit. Sometimes I think I can hear water beneath my feet, or not even an audible sound, just the sensation of a great dark tide moving somewhere in the depths. If I were to take a leap, swan dive down, plummeting after the silent hordes, whether I found myself a new home amongst the earthworms in the darkness, as something blind and ghostly and crawling, or even if I simply fell and continued to fall, without end, then, at least, I'd no longer be in askew.
At all.
That was weeks ago now, and the shops and pavements are beginning to swell with bodies once again. Soon, the wound will have healed, and the city will let us forget the sickness ever happened. I'm not sure if you were expecting a moral. I'm not sure I have one for you. If there is anything behind all of this, any greater intelligence behind the bizarre happenings and cruel transfigurations that askew forces upon us each and every day, then perhaps I should take it as a show of power. Just look at you, the city says. Look how far I can twist you before you break. But perhaps that's all vanity, and this world is filled with nightmares because it's simply grown beyond our original limited design into something which is no longer communicating with us, even as we inhabit it. I've forgotten something. Sister Agnes and her short-lived crusade against the pit. The tower is still standing. We all assumed, since she and her disciples never returned to the ground, that they had in fact found a final resting place up there amongst the clouds, a martyr's end, as she'd promised. Presently, as the days grew warmer, we were proven right. A sudden, violent rain upon Cemetery Hill, of fingers, of stringy sinew, of rotten ears and noses, sprouting with brilliant blue flowers and fungus. There was no real way of telling any of them apart, although several enterprising scavengers snatched up the various heads to sell as relics of the blessed Sister Agnes. The dogs took care of the rest. That's all from me. Be with you again soon.
Papi, ¿podemos hacer esa receta que hacía abuela?
¿La del churrasco con plátanos maduros y arroz con frijoles? ¡Debemos!
Y también podemos hacer la yuca.
It's easy to be a superhero. You don't need a cape or x-ray vision. You just need to sign up for Power Saver Rewards. That way, when you save energy during a Flex Alert, you get a credit back on your energy bill. Visit PowerSaverRewards.org and become a superpower saver!
And now, a next-level moment from AT&T Business. Say you've sent out a gigantic shipment of pillows, and they need to be there in time for International Sleep Day. You've got AT&T 5G, so you're fully confident. But the vendor isn't responding, and International Sleep Day is tomorrow. Luckily, AT&T 5G lets you deal with any issues with ease, so the pillows will get delivered and everyone can sleep soundly, especially you. AT&T 5G requires a compatible plan and device. Coverage not available everywhere. Learn more at att.com/5G network.
Did you know sperm donors at California Cryobank can make up to $2,400 a month, all while helping families? Plus, free health and genetic screenings are included in the qualification process. If you're 19 to 38, healthy, and can work in the U.S., find out if you've got what it takes to be a donor with California Cryobank, the world's #1 sperm bank. Apply now at spermbank.com.
At Ralph's, we know that to-do lists, well, they're never short. And sometimes all those to-dos can get in the way of spending
Feel
time with
at
the ones you
all.
love. That's why same-day pickup and delivery from Ralph's is such a game changer. You can easily shop the same great prices and quality as you get in-store. And we'll bring your groceries right to you. Satisfaction guaranteed. So you never compromise on the moments that matter most. Ralph's. Fresh for everyone. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
Imagine being on a vacation for a very long time. Now imagine saving money nightly while you do it. Sounds pretty great, right? With Vrbo's long stay discounts, you can stay longer and save more. Our customers save an average of 10% when they book select properties for a week or longer. Just in case you needed another reason to extend that vacation.
don't feel
Book the
at
perfect
all.
summer getaway today with Vrbo Private Vacation Rentals. Your future self will thank you later.
Want a treatment for your moderate to severe Crohn's disease you can use at home or on the go? Talk to your doctor about the Entyvio pen, an option after at least 2 IV starter doses. Entyvio helped many people achieve long-term relief and remission at week 52. Infusion and serious allergic reactions can happen during or after treatment. Entyvio may increase risk of infection, which can be serious. PML, a rare, potentially fatal brain infection, cannot be ruled out. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, sores, or are prone to infections. Liver problems can occur. Visit Entyvio.com today and learn more about the Entyvio pen. Individual results may vary.
Entyvio.
Episode 4. Culpability. People change for the worse in crowds, I've found. I don't know if you've noticed it. They simply lose something of themselves. Their initiative, their decision-making skills, their ability to hear and see beyond the reactions of the others around them. More than once in Askew, I have tried to politely move through a packed subway carriage to reach the doors for my stop, only to be faced with a sea of spines. Every other commuter turning their backs to me, their faces hidden from me, still and silent, refusing to acknowledge my existence, no matter how loud I scream. And then there's that peculiar phenomenon on a rainy day, where a dozen or more suited men and women will gather around a single seated vagrant at a street corner, and in quiet unison raise their umbrellas and bring them down with a hard wet thwack again and again and again until the blood runs. I suppose what I'm trying to say is this. I do not believe people to be cattle. But I believe this city has the power to make us so. It knows how adaptable we are, how conducive to repetition, more than we ever could. There's a busy crossroads at the bottom of the Chaplain's Hill, just a few minutes from the office of the newspaper where I work. Every morning, I wait to cross, as the traffic comes from north to south, from west to east, and then stops entirely, and I step out into the road. And I am so very frightened that one day I will have drifted, through repetition and exhaustion, just close enough to sleep, so that when the lights change unexpectedly, from west to east and then north to south, I am not watching for the danger, but stepping automatically out into the road, into the path of a looming truck or hooting, mocking scooter, torn to pieces in a savage instant. For now, at least, I hope I am just awake enough. My name is David Ward. I am in Askew. On Monday morning, my editor comes up to see me on the 14th floor of the Askew Tribunal and asks me to visit a murderer. The man in question has just this week been convicted for the butchery of his wife and 2 daughters in the most upsetting manner you could possibly imagine. Now every hack and ghostwriter in the city is putting out feelers to see if he's keen to find a media partner, but the tribunal alone has been able to secure an interview. The killer, according to his lawyers, had an especially rough and traumatic childhood. My editor feels that this would be the most appropriate angle to consider. There's something there, he insists, about cycles of hurt and inheritance of violence. It'd go down well. It certainly sounds like a change of pace. But it's pouring with rain outside, I have a full packet of chocolate biscuits, and I've positioned myself close to the radiator. Sounds like a job for the crime desk, I tell him. My editor shakes his head. They're not here today, he tells me, and I don't think they'll be coming in tomorrow. There's something going around. He makes a clawing motion with his hands and gives me a look as if I'm supposed to know what that means. I tell him I'll head out immediately. He adds, as I'm leaving, that it would be quite the coup if we could find out where the rest of the remains have been stashed. On the 19th floor of the Coldfriars Hospital, in a private room watched by 2 uniformed guards and, quite securely, shackled to the rails of the bed by all 4 limbs, lies the man I'm looking for. If you can call him a man any longer. I busy myself in taking a seat, quite unable to look him in the eye, and with an inappropriate degree of false chumminess introduce myself and the publication I'm approaching him on behalf of. The man in the bed says, "What's your angle?" I tell him that my only angle is his angle, that I have been a supporter of his since the beginning of the trial, and I strongly intend to give him all of the support he needs to explain his side of the story, to share the humanity behind the crime. He gives a sort of shaky laugh, settles back in the bed, and tells me that humanity has nothing whatsoever to do with it. Then we can talk about that, I insist over-eagerly. This can be your manifesto, an appendix to the central body of your work. The man in the bed tells me he'd like a soda. Well, I think, there's nothing wrong with that, and I leave him alone for a while, losing myself in the echoing and empty corridors in search of a vending machine. When I return, I make to hand the can to him, and he only chuckles roughly and lifts his arms, waving in surrender. His hands barely make it halfway to what I suppose I should describe as his face. "You'll have to help me with that," he says. Well, I don't like the idea, but cooperation is the cornerstone of society, and so I inch across to stand over him, open up the soda can with a carbonated hiss, and tilt it towards the black slit of his mouth. I can hear it gurgling in the back of his throat as he drinks and drinks and drains. His eyes meet mine, and he nods to show he's done. I lower the can, and his fingers close around my wrist. His grip is tight. His skin is so cold it bites. And then, before I even have a chance to cry out, he releases me and drops his hand, swiftly, almost bashfully, as if he just wanted to prove to himself, or to me, that he could do it. "Well," the man in the bed asks me, "what did you want me to say?" My dictaphone lies on the table between us. The man in the bed watches me. He seems content to let me flail about in trying to initiate the beginnings of an interview. I ask him about his wife. He stares at me. I ask him about his 2 beautiful daughters, and instantly I wonder if that's a mistake, calling them beautiful given what he's done to them. But he stares at me. I ask him about his childhood,
and his eye twitches once. I offer up a fragment from my own childhood, a trick I remember from old detective shows on TV. Something about my mother and a song she used to sing to herself as she ran the bath for me in the evenings. The welcoming, gushing roar of the taps drifting through the corridors. The hot towel waiting for me when I stepped back out of the water. Comfort.
Oh, come on.
But I blew out into the his lawyers had an especially rough and him on behalf of. The man in the bed says, "What's your angle?" I tell him that my only Annie. I ask him about his two beautiful daughters, and instantly I wonder if that's a mistake, calling them beautiful given what he's done to them. But he stares at me. I ask him about his childhood, and his eye twitches once. I offer up a fragment from my own childhood, a trick I remember from old detective shows on TV. Something about my mother and a song she used to sing to herself as she ran the bath for me in the evenings. The welcoming, gushing roar of the taps drifting through the corridors. The hot towel waiting for me when I stepped back out of the water. Comfort and safety. I tell him that even as a grown man, when I feel truly afraid, truly alone, as if I no longer have friends in this world or the next, I think back to that noise, that warmth, that feeling. The man in the bed is silent and very still. Then he begins to speak. He tells me about the blue front door of his childhood flat. Faded blue, with 2 locks and a chain, and a spiral of frosted glass in 4 separate panes. Before his mother left, when he was 8 years old, the man in the bed remembers a single vivid night. A night when he saw the glass blur, and heard the rough, a rhythmical knock that meant his father had been drinking. And he was already at the door, his hand closing over the chain, pulling it free to let his father inside, when he heard the frantic pounding of his mother's feet on the stairs. And he turned and looked up to see her, dressed in a coat, with her packed suitcase in one hand, and his own smaller holiday bag in another, and her eyes were full of desperation as she whispered, "Just a second too late. Don't let him in." He blames himself. If he'd waited just a little longer, maybe kept his hand on the chain, so that his father couldn't barge through into the hallway, staring first in disbelief and then a rising fury at the sight of his mother, packed and ready to leave. If he'd only kept that door closed a moment longer, she might have been able to take him with her. At first, the man in the bed insists that he doesn't want to dwell on what came next, in the years when he was living alone with his father. But it's not that easy, and he isn't that good at hiding his pain. I listen to an ensuing catalogue of humiliations and hurt. A father who came home through the front door to shriek at him, strike him with the back of his hand, scorn and sneer at him, on the nights when the man had been drinking, or suffered at work, or struck out with a girl. Beer cans hurled at the wall, kicks aimed at the boy's face, insults that he was forced to repeat over and over, agreeing with them, accepting their diagnosis. My editor will be delighted. The hardest thing to live with during those years, he tells me, was hope. A single, desperate hope that one day his mother would come back and take him with her. A fraying hope, eaten away at every evening when the blurred shape of his father appeared at the front door. Renewed, in his quietest, sobbing moments alone in his bedroom, when there was quite simply nothing else to hold on to. One day she will come. One day there will be a knock at that door, and she'll be standing there, just as she was when she left. And how quickly his hope turned to faith, a searching and exploratory faith in any God that might deliver up to him his wish, his desire, his lifeline. Long nights of prayer beside his bed, to the powers of the churches and the deities of the lower town. Please let her come. Let her come and take me away from this. He was 12 years old when his prayer was finally heard. A cold, bright, clear morning in Askew. He remembers coming downstairs, ready to make breakfast and sit alone with his comic books as usual, to witness the unfamiliar and perplexing sight of his father, clattering shamefacedly about with the dishes in the sink, saying to him in a voice that was all at once nervous and sulky, "Pack your things. Your mother's coming to pick you up." He simply stood there, blank and staring, refusing to process the words, until his father turned around and snapped more loudly, "Didn't you hear me? She's coming to get you, and she'll be here soon. Go and pack." And then, all at once, he was running up to his bedroom, pulling his bag out from under the bed, and stuffing objects into it as he found them. A few token clothes, a toothbrush from the bathroom, some drawings he'd made last year which he'd always wanted to show her, a book she'd given him when he was 6. The bag wasn't even full, not even half full when he zipped it up, because his mother was coming to get him and he didn't need anything else. And all at once the smile broke out of him like a sunrise.
You'll be okay.
He slung the bag over his shoulder and ran to take up a position halfway down the stairs, facing the blue front door and the archway of frosted glass panes, paying no attention whatsoever to his father, who was anxiously tidying away the beer cans and adjusting the carpets and trying to give the false sense of a home that was happy and clean and safe. He waited and waited, willing the glass to change, to produce the sudden blur of a shape standing behind it, the sign that his mother had finally arrived. And it was beginning to occur to him that perhaps this was a new prank, a game invented by his father to torment him by pretending that his mother was coming to pick him up, and the smile was just beginning to droop from his face, when suddenly darkness moved beyond the frosted glass, and a knock came at the door. 2 knocks. Tap, tap. It was an odd sound, unlike any he'd heard the wood make before. Hollow and dull and empty. He got to his feet, hardly daring to step up to the door and see her for himself, and the knock came again. Tap, tap. "I'll get it," he cried aloud, because this was his moment, and he didn't want to share it with his father. I'll get it, don't worry." And he went to the door and pulled aside the chain and turned the handle to open it wide, and stood there, staring up at the thing that was not his mother. Its face was wide and white and clownish as if drawn in chalk. Its eyes were black and round and horribly empty even as they stared down at him, and its mouth was set in a grin that never moved. Like a painting, he tells me. like a sketch upon the surface of the air, a mocking caricature of a human skull. It was wearing his mother's dress, the same dress she wore the night when she left, and in its long-fingered hand it held his mother's face like a purse, empty and eyeless and drooping, a mask of skin. Its face seemed to fill the sky. He felt his father come up behind him, placing a restraining hand on his shoulder, and say aloud calmly, "You're late. You said 10:30, and it's closer to 11. The thing that was not his mother did not move. Its expression did not change. It did not stop staring down at him. And yet his father continued, as if to an inaudible reply, "Well, he'll be glad to see the back of me, I'm sure, and I'll have a lot less trouble on my hands as well." The thing that was not his mother did not move. It simply waited for him. He felt his father's palm on his back, pushing him forward, making him stagger. "Go on then," his father said. "Don't keep your mother waiting." And as he looked up into that monstrous, chalky, grinning face, he began to quiver and shake and cry, turning back, burying himself into his father's stomach, sobbing, "Don't let her take me. Don't let her take me." His father, surprised, tried to prise him loose, saying in a voice that was unexpectedly soft and shocked, "Don't be ridiculous, boy. She's going to look after you now. What are you crying for?" And he shook his head and cried and shivered, clinging to his father's reassuring, sweaty shirt, refusing to look back at the thing that was not his mother, begging him not to make him go with it, until finally his father said, apologetically, "Well, if he really doesn't want to go, I suppose we can't force him." Silence. And the darkness, when he looked up, was no longer visible in the frosted glass, and he was alone with his father again. The man in the bed stares at me. "What do you make of that?" he asks. "Do you think I was dreaming? Was it really my mother standing there, and I was just deluded? Or was it something else?" I have lived in askew for too long to be a skeptic. But I am also very aware that I have drifted into the periphery of something that makes the hairs on the back of my neck prickle. And in such circumstances, it's always better not to draw attention to yourself. I tell him gently that it's probably my fault for introducing the topic of his childhood, but it seems as if we've strayed away from the issue of the murders. He laughs like a lunatic. That's exactly it, he tells me. This is the only way he has of explaining it. Because it was only decades later, with his father safely put to rest on Cemetery Hill, when he was living out in the grey suburbs with a wife who loved him and 2 daughters who he'd do anything for, caught in the trap of middle-aged comfort, that he began to wonder, once again, what would have happened if he'd gone with her? And he begins to ache with regret and shame that he did not have the courage to reach out and take the hand of the thing that was not his mother, and go with her to whatever great journey was being offered to him. His eyes fall. His fingers clench into fists. That was my next mistake, he tells me. I have made so many dreadful mistakes. He remembers working late, one night alone in his office, quietly dreading the journey home to his kind and caring family, the inevitable conclusion of a life that had begun with horror and achieved only the banal success of making itself ordinary. When the frosted glass windows looking out onto the divisional floor shifted into blackness, and he heard someone knocking at the door. 2 taps. Tap, tap. He stayed at his desk, quite frozen for some time, wondering if he'd just misheard the creaking of the floors or the pattering of the radiators, if the darkness had not shifted behind the frosted glass, but had been there all along, willing up the rational capacity to dismiss what he had just seen and heard and return to his computer screen. When the knock came again. Tap, tap. He got to his feet, stood at the door, listening, unable to say the words, "Go away," or "Come in." Finally, knowing in his heart that he was trapped and alone, and had nowhere to turn except for the inescapable reality of the door and whatever was standing behind it, his fingers closed on the handle. He opened the door. The floor was empty. Nothing was standing there. And he began to laugh, with a kind of scornful relief at himself for falling into a blind panic so quickly, and yet he left the door ajar as he went back to his desk to pack away his things for the long drive home, just so he could see if there was anything coming. He kept checking in his own rearview mirror all of the way home, spooked and twitchy, trying to fix his mind on the reassuring certainty of his family, waiting for him at home, the simple decency of a cooked meal, and affection and laughter. It was as he pulled into his driveway that he stopped thinking about anything at all, because right away he could see that his front door was wide open, and the light within was shining brightly over an empty hallway. He stepped out of the car, walked the few feet to the mat which read, "Welcome," stepped into his house, calling his wife's name as he entered the deserted kitchen, calling his daughter's names as he walked into the living room and saw the open patio door leading out into their little treasured garden. Stopped calling. Saw the clothesline, bedsheets and socks hanging in the darkness, billowing like phantoms in the wind. His wife's face, his daughter's faces, pegged and eyeless and empty, hung there amongst the washing. I stop recording. You didn't kill them, I venture. That's what you're telling me. You're innocent. The man in the bed shakes his head. Whatever happened to my family, he insists, I was the cause of. I have no doubt about that. He had been offered 2 chances to leave, and he'd failed to take either of them. This, as he'd tried to explain to his lawyer, had been why he hadn't called the police or an ambulance. Why he'd walked back into the kitchen, slid a knife from the rack, and provided tangible evidence to whoever might be watching that he was ready to make things right. He stares at me, wild-eyed and delighted through the protective gauze of his mask. It's coming loose round the edges. You can see the raw flesh. They'll be coming to get me soon enough, he says. I don't mind, even if they make me wait. I'm ready now. I'm ready to go with them. I'm at home as I record this, alone in my apartment, with the front door locked and bolted, and I can't stop thinking about something. When I was younger and in London, I never gave much consideration to my mother. Sometimes I used to dream that she'd die soon, of some petty embolism or in a car accident, and finally I'd have a way to explain myself, That's just the way David is, they'd say. And in my heart, I'd be able to agree with their diagnosis. That's just the way David is, because his mother died. I used to often dream of cataclysmic events like these. The loss of both legs, a sudden blindness, some awful and unique tragedy that would be a way to make sense of me. But now I'm in askew, and I understand there's nothing to be explained. I dream of my mother, singing under her breath beside the bathtub, her back turned to me, the taps running and the boiler roaring with giddy laughter to welcome me home. This feels like a warning, as if the city wants me to understand there's no way out, and that if I should believe I found an escape route, and I should turn a door handle to find myself back in my own familiar flat, and my mother there with her back turned to me humming and chanting, her fingers buried in the water of 2 roaring taps, then she may turn to reveal a face that is not hers, but chalk white and empty and grinning, and I will know that I am still in askew. All of this, as ever, is most likely vanity on my part, a delusion that the world appears differently to me as it does to others, a reality I'm confronted with when I take my finished article to my editor and he tells me that it's all useless, as the man tossed himself down a concrete stairwell last night and the papers no longer have use for any of it. Nevertheless, I think I might have to be more careful about how I speak to you. Be with you again soon.
Papi, ¿podemos hacer esa receta que hacía abuela?
La del churrasco con plátanos maduros y arroz.
Scary. Hello. Yeah, I'm okay. How are you? Sorry, I'm gonna. No, I just got done listening to a podcast which scared me, so I'm like on edge. But how are you? Can I play it once, like how it works? What is the subject of the sentence? What does it refer to? Um, I'm gonna end stream, but it's been so nice. Thank you, chat, for being so kind. Um, yeah. Bye.